I heard the glass crack, again, but nothing had broken. It was Tuesday, again. The morning light filtered through the kitchen blinds, cutting pale gold stripes across the marble countertops. The smell of fresh coffee filled the air. The toaster clicked. My daughter's giggle echoed from the hallway. All of it, perfect, too perfect. I stood still, holding a ceramic mug midair, heart skipping like a scratched record. That sound, the sharp, dry crack, had become too familiar. It always came at the same moment. Right when I reached for the mug with the chipped rim, the one with Mom Fuel printed on it. But nothing ever shattered, nothing ever fell. "Mommy?" Lily's small voice drifted in from the bathroom. "Can you braid my hair?" I shook off the chill and forced a smile onto my face. "Coming, baby." I found her sitting on the closed toilet lid, swinging her legs in pink pajama pants, brushing her doll's hair. Her dark curls, wild and beautiful, framed her round cheeks like a halo. She held out the brush with a grin. "You do it better than me." I knelt behind her and began parting her hair, fingers working on autopilot. That's when she said it, the phrase that iced my spine. "After school, can we go get the red balloon again? Like yesterday?" My fingers froze. Yesterday. There had been no balloon, not this yesterday. She looked over her shoulder, brow furrowed. "Mommy?" I finished the braid too quickly, too tightly. "We'll see, sweetie." I walked back to the kitchen with my heart thudding like it knew a secret it wasn't ready to tell me. I checked the calendar. Tuesday. Again. Daniel sat at the counter, laptop open, phone in hand. Crisp shirt, perfect hair, same half smile he always wore when checking the markets. He sipped his espresso like he didn't feel the shift in the air, like he hadn't heard the crack. "Morning," he said without looking up. "Silvas are coming by Saturday. Don't let me forget." He said that last Tuesday. I nodded, too numb to answer. I took the same bite of toast I always did, burnt on one side, barely warm on the other, and let it sit on my tongue like ash. Was this grief, anxiety, a psychotic break, or had I just lived this day before? At 8:13 a.m., Lily spilled orange juice. At 8:15, Daniel kissed my cheek and left with his briefcase. At 8:16, I wiped the same sticky spot on the floor as I did the week before, and maybe the week before that. I opened my notes app. My fingers trembled as I typed. Tuesday, April 4th, heard the crack again. Lily mentioned balloon, same phrasing. Daniel said Silva's coming again. Same toast. 8:13 juice spill. 8:16 wipe floor. I stared at the list. I didn't even remember starting this log. Did I write this before? Maybe this was all stress. My schedule had been relentless. Kids, work, Daniel's upcoming promotion party, PTA meetings, aging parents. Maybe it had finally broken me. And yet, there was something underneath the familiarity. Something sour. Something like déjà vu but sharper. Like touching something hot and realizing you'd burned yourself before. It wasn't just repetition, it was recognition. I opened the fridge and stared blankly inside, forgetting why I had. Then I noticed the magnets. 4 of them aligned perfectly, a sun, a dog, a purple letter L, and a snowflake, in that order. Again. I pulled one off just to break the pattern. I chose the snowflake. Set it down face up on the counter. I blinked. The fridge was whole again. The magnets, all 4, perfectly aligned as if I'd never moved them. I stepped back. "Okay," I whispered. "That's new." By noon, I had tried 3 small experiments, rearranged the living room pillows, moved the vase from the dining table to the windowsill, and texted Mara, my best friend, something ridiculous. "Do you remember how we died in Paris?" Her reply came instantly. "Elmeo, what? You okay?" "Also, we never went to Paris, babe. But, hadn't we?" No, we hadn't. But I could picture it. Cobblestones under our heels, that accordion song, the pastry shop on Rue Claire. It wasn't a memory. It was a bleed through from another life, a dream, something else. I sat on the sofa and stared at nothing. My skin prickled like the moment before a storm hits. A soft breeze moved through the open window, rustling the curtain, and with it came the scent of lavender. That's when I felt it again. The crack, not in glass. Not in sound, in reality. like the world was a thin porcelain shell, and something underneath was knocking to get out. The toast was burnt again, same side, same angle, same half-browned failure staring back at me from the plate like a warning I hadn't deciphered yet. I didn't even bother scraping it this time. I sat at the kitchen table, holding my mug in both hands like it was an anchor. Outside the window, my neighbor June jogged past, blonde ponytail bouncing, green leggings, earbuds in, just like yesterday, and the day before that, and the Tuesday before. It wasn't just her outfit, it was the way she waved with her left hand, not the right, the way she smiled but only with her mouth, not her eyes. I turned on the radio. And in other news, local council members are still debating the zoning permits downtown. More on that at 8. I turned it off. I already knew how the segment ended. I could mouth the anchor's intonation from memory, and not because I'd heard the clip before, because I'd lived it. The phone buzzed, a notification, PTA meeting reminder, same time, same place, same dread. I looked down at my shirt. The stain was there again, faint, right at the hem. Blueberry smoothie. Except I hadn't had blueberries this week, or last. I didn't even like them. I tried to laugh. It came out dry. Maybe I was losing my mind. Maybe it had already happened, and this was just the afterimage. Dr. Lang's office smelled like lemongrass and self-help books. She sat across from me in her usual posture, arms relaxed, legs crossed, glasses perched halfway down her nose like a therapist in a TV show. Only she wasn't acting. I was. "How's the sleep?" she asked, voice smooth as a meditation track. "Short," I said. "Dreams are loud, vivid, but the days feel louder." "Still the repetition?" "Yes. I know it sounds—" I broke off, picking at the corner of the couch cushion. "I know it sounds like anxiety. But it's not just that. It's like I'm stuck in a script. The same lines, the same cues. And I'm the only one who notices we're all pretending." Dr. Lang tilted her head. "Pretending? Playing a part? Everyone's doing the same motions, even me. I watch myself make breakfast like I've rehearsed it 1,000 times. I know exactly when Lily will spill her juice, when Daniel will say the Silvas are coming, when the toast burns. Down to the second." She clicked her pen. "Do you think you're being watched?" I laughed bitterly. "Not watched. Replayed. Like I'm some sitcom rerun that never got canceled." Her eyes softened, just a little. "Karen, we've talked about burnout before. You're a mother, a wife, a working woman, and let's be honest, an overachiever. The pressure to keep everything in order can manifest in strange ways, patterns, hyper-awareness, even dissociation." "It's not dissociation," I said flatly. "I'm not zoning out. I'm waking up." She scribbled something in her notebook. "Have you tried meditation? Have you tried listening?" I snapped, then immediately winced. "Sorry, that was rude." She offered a tight smile, no offense taken. "But I do think grounding exercises could help." "You're not alone, Karen. Many women in your stage of life feel like they're losing touch with time. We call it time slippage." "No," I said quietly. "I'm not losing touch. I'm repeating it. And I think something wants me to notice. Silence." Then the hum of the air conditioning filled the room again, like nothing had happened. The wind outside had picked up when I left her office. I zipped my jacket and headed toward the car, trying to ignore the strange heaviness in my limbs. Everything felt rubbery, like I was walking through a memory instead of real air. A leaf hit my windshield. It was bright red, veined with gold. I stared at it longer than I should have. I got in and turned the key. The car started with the same sound as always, and the same song played on the radio, every single time. At home, Lily was drawing on the living room rug with her glitter markers. She looked up at me, grinning. "I made you," she said, pointing. I looked at the picture. It was a stick figure with brown hair and a frown. Above it, a red balloon and a sun with a face. My breath hitched. "That balloon again." "Do you like it?" she asked. I knelt down and hugged her a little too tightly. "I love it." But inside I felt the walls of my world shift again. Not fall. Just tilt. Enough to know something was breaking. Not suddenly, not loudly, but like the slow crack of old glass under pressure, and I was running out of time to pretend it wasn't real. The rain came out of nowhere. One second the sky was a smooth blue canvas, and the next it turned the color of bruises. Drops slapped against the windshield like nails. Wipers squeaked in a frantic rhythm, but they couldn't keep up. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel, knuckles white. Lily was at a friend's house. Daniel was working late. I had time to breathe, time to drive, time to try to feel normal again. But the further I went, the more the world blurred. Trees bent in the wind. Streetlights flickered. My reflection in the rearview mirror didn't blink when I did. I turned the volume up. Talk radio. Something about zoning permits again. My breath caught. No, not again. I reached the intersection. Red light. I knew this one. Knew it too well. The street name, Oak and Mercy, hit like deja vu squared. I shouldn't know that name. I never drive this way. But I knew what came next. A green sedan turning too fast. A horn. A scream. My scream. I should have turned around. I should have pulled over. But I didn't. Because part of me, some traitorous, curious, broken part, wanted to see if it would happen again. The light turned green. I turned left, and then... white light, deafening sound, screeching metal. The world tipped, the steering wheel yanked from my hands. Not darkness, not cold, white. I floated, not upward, not down, just nowhere. There was no pain, no body, just the sense of self, stripped of bones and skin and memory. Time dissolved, or maybe it had never existed. Then a flicker, a voice, not spoken but felt. You were warned. I tried to respond, but there was no mouth, no lungs. Just me, just thought, just fear. Then came the pull, a soft tug behind whatever I was now. It grew stronger, heavier, until it became unbearable. And then... breath. I gasped and sat up. Sheets tangled around my legs, my pillow soaked with sweat. My lungs burned like I hadn't used them in hours. Sunlight filtered through the blinds in familiar stripes. Coffee aroma drifted through the hallway. The hum of the toaster. Lily's footsteps. Tuesday. Again. No, I whispered, gripping the edge of the bed. I threw off the covers and ran to the bathroom. I stared at my reflection. It looked back. Alive. Too alive, but different. There, on my left forearm, a scar, thin, pale, diagonal. Like something sharp had kissed me there and left a whisper behind. I touched it. Flinched. It wasn't there yesterday, or the day before, but it was real now, real and cold. I stumbled into the hallway, found Lily in the kitchen brushing her doll's hair. "Mommy," she chirped, "can you braid mine again, just like yesterday?" I stared at her. She was the same, her smile, her voice, even her mismatched socks, one with rainbows, the other with stars. The same. My hands shook as I reached for the brush. "Sure, baby," I said, but my voice cracked halfway through. I braided her hair, too tightly. I kissed her head. Too long. I watched her like I expected her to vanish if I blinked. Daniel entered the kitchen, tie already perfect. "Morning," he said. "Silvas are coming by Saturday, don't let me forget." Same words, same tone. No mention of where he'd been last night. He never had. I didn't ask. I didn't care. Because I was dead. I had died. And now I was back here. Again. I sat at the kitchen table, notebook open, pen trembling in my grip. I scribbled a new entry beneath yesterday's. Car crash. Oak and Mercy. Head-on collision. Saw white. Woke up. Scar on left forearm. Same Tuesday. Same toast. Same words. Why am I still here? The scar pulsed as I wrote. Like it remembered too. I looked at my family, Daniel scrolling through his phone, Lily humming softly, and I wondered if they were real, or just actors in a dream I couldn't wake up from, or worse, prisoners like me. I tried to scream inside, but my face stayed calm, my hands steady. Outside, the world looked exactly the same, but I wasn't. Something had changed, not just the scar, not just the repetition, me. I could feel it. Some old part of me waking up, stretching, remembering. This wasn't the first time I died, and if I didn't figure out why, I was going to do it again. I didn't plan to be on that street. I was supposed to be picking Lily up from her art class, but a detour, one that didn't exist on the GPS, guided me through the old part of town. The buildings here looked like they'd been forgotten by time. Ivy wrapped around brick, windows clouded with age, signs painted by hand, faded to ghost lettering. Then I saw it. A storefront tucked between a shuttered cafe and an abandoned laundromat. No name, no display, just a warped glass door with a tarnished brass knob and a flickering light inside. I don't know why I stopped. I don't know why I pushed the door open. But I did. The smell hit me first. Old paper, candle wax, and something older, like cedar and ash. Dust swirled in the light like it was alive. Shelves of books towered around me, uneven and mismatched. Trinkets, gears, typewriters, tarot cards, clocks without hands, and silence. "Back already?" A voice called from behind a shelf. I froze. A man emerged slowly, wiping his hands on a linen cloth. He wore a dark vest, sleeves rolled to his elbows, silver hair tied back. His eyes, sharp, blue, impossibly calm, landed on me like they knew me. I don't think we've met," I said. He smiled faintly. "Not in this loop, maybe." My stomach flipped. "Excuse me?" He waved a hand. "You don't remember yet. That's all right. You're early this time." I looked around, grasping for an exit, but the shop felt like it had closed in behind me, like the air had thickened. I just walked in off the street. Of course you did." He gestured toward a battered armchair near the counter. "You always do. Eventually." I didn't move. "Who are you?" I asked. "My name's Thomas," he said. "And you're Karen, mother of one. Married to a man who doesn't know what to do with you now that you've started waking up." I took a step back. "How do you know that?" "I listen," he said simply, "to time. It speaks if you know how to hear it." I couldn't breathe. The smell of the place. It wasn't just books. It was memory. "This is crazy," I whispered. "No," he said gently. "It's finally starting to make sense." He moved behind the counter and pulled out a wooden box. Opened it. Inside was a small, cracked mirror. When he angled it toward me, my reflection flickered. Not distorted, different. For half a second, I didn't see me. I saw a woman with longer hair, darker skin, a dress from another century. My eyes, but not mine. I jerked back. What the hell was that? "Another version of you," Thomas said. Another cycle. A memory bleeding through. I clutched my stomach. Why is this happening to me? "Time loops," he said, "aren't punishment. They're echoes. When a soul gets caught in unresolved trauma, deep enough, powerful enough, it won't move on. Instead, it repeats. Looks for resolution." I stared at him. "Like reincarnation?" "Something like that. But not quite. You're not reborn, you're recycled. Over and over. Small changes, slight edits. You remember more each time, and the loop adjusts to keep you in it." My knees gave out. I dropped into the armchair, heart hammering. "How many times?" He didn't answer. "That scar on my arm," I whispered. "It came back with me." "Some things stay," he said. "Physical markers, emotional instincts, dreams. You're getting close. That's why it's speeding up." I looked at him, tears pricking the back of my eyes. What am I supposed to do? How do I stop it? He leaned forward, eyes suddenly sharp. "You have to remember what doesn't belong to this life, what you left behind before this one started. And then, you face it. Completely." I swallowed. "What happens if I don't?" "You'll wake up again," he said. "And again. And eventually you won't remember who you were to begin with." A long silence fell between us. Somewhere behind me a grandfather clock chimed, but it had no hands. "Why are you helping me?" I asked. Thomas looked at the cracked mirror. For a moment something softened in him. A sadness that felt personal. "Because I failed someone like you once," he said quietly, "and I promised I wouldn't do it again." When I stepped back outside, the sky had cleared. But the air still felt heavy. I looked down the street, back the way I came, but nothing looked familiar. No sign of the road that brought me here, just buildings blinking in the afternoon sun. Just a woman walking through a story she wasn't writing. And somewhere deep inside me, A name I didn't recognize whispered itself again and again. Not Karen. Clara. You don't want to believe it at first. Not when it's your husband. The man who brings you coffee in the mornings. The man who kissed your forehead before your first ultrasound. The man who said, "We're a team," like it was a vow. But once you start looking, it's all there. Daniel's phone, face down. The way he started showering in the guest bathroom after workouts. The sudden overnight business trips for a job that never used to require travel. And that scent. One that clung to him after he came home late. Not perfume. Not exactly. Just not mine. I told myself I wouldn't do it. I wasn't going to be that wife. But there I was, 3 days after meeting Thomas, sitting in my parked car outside an office building downtown, watching Daniel through tinted glass. He wasn't alone. She came out of the revolving door first, tall, younger, with red lipstick and perfect posture. She paused to check her phone, then turned around as Daniel caught up to her. They didn't kiss. Of course not. But she touched his chest when she laughed, and when he touched her back, it lingered. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there and felt something inside me turn to ash, because this version of my husband, the one who'd spent months gently gaslighting me, wasn't new. I knew this version. Somewhere in another life, another loop, he'd done this before, and I had let him. Back at home, I tried to breathe normally. Lily was in the living room, crayons spread across the floor. She looked up at me and beamed. "Hi, Mommy. I made more pictures." I forced a smile and knelt beside her. "Can I see?" She held up the first page, me, her, and Daniel in front of our house. Classic stick figure family. Smiley faces. The second drawing was different. I was lying on the street, arms splayed, red scribbles around my head. A balloon floated above me. Daniel stood off to the side, small in the corner. His face was just a flat black circle. No features. Lily pointed at the picture proudly. "That one's about the bad day. But it's okay now because you're awake again." My skin went cold. "Lily, when did you draw this?" She shrugged. "I saw it in my dreams. You were sleeping for a long time, but you came back. You always come back." I tried to hold the paper steady, but my hand was shaking. She went back to her crayons, humming softly to herself. I stared at the drawing. The balloon. The red. The street. She'd drawn the car crash. She'd never seen the crash, unless some part of her had felt it. My daughter was inside the loop with me, and she didn't even know. Later that afternoon, I sat at my work desk and opened the draft folder I'd kept for months. Design concepts, brand pitch decks, campaign proposals, my pride, my hours, my identity. I clicked into the folder labeled Final Pitches. They weren't mine. The names had been changed, some slides reformatted. But they were mine. Same taglines, same font pairings, same iconography. I clicked through each slide with a hollow feeling growing in my chest. I checked the metadata. Files last modified by J. Sanders. Julia Sanders. My colleague. My friend. The one Daniel had hired last year. The one he always defended. I slammed the laptop shut. It was all fake. My marriage. My career. Even my child's memories weren't just hers. How many times had I played this role? How many loops had I spent smiling through betrayal, convincing myself it wasn't real? Maybe the loop didn't just trap me. Maybe it relied on me forgetting how much of this life was a lie. Maybe that's why I'd started remembering. Because this version of me was done playing nice. That night, I sat across from Daniel at dinner. He talked about a new client. I nodded. He asked about Lily's upcoming recital. I smiled. But I saw it all clearly now. The way he flinched when I looked at him too long. The careful choice of words. The micropauses. The rehearsed concern. This wasn't love. This was performance. And I'd been the only one showing up without a script. Until now. When he went to bed, I stayed behind in the kitchen, lights dimmed, heart thudding. I pulled Lily's drawing back out from under the fruit bowl, flattened the crumpled edges, and stared. In the drawing, the sun had a face. It wasn't smiling. It was watching. I traced the lines slowly, whispering under my breath. "You remember, don't you, baby? Even if you don't know it yet." I folded the picture and tucked it into the back of my journal. I wasn't sure what tomorrow would bring. But I knew this much. My life had been a lie. And the truth? The truth was just beginning to wake up. I don't know what made me go down there that night. Maybe it was the silence after Daniel fell asleep, or the hum in my skull that wouldn't stop, like a whisper just outside my hearing. Or maybe it was the fact that I'd started dreaming in someone else's handwriting. Whatever it was, it pulled me to the basement like a magnet. I grabbed the flashlight from the drawer and stepped onto the first creaking stair. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Even the fridge had stopped humming. The air grew colder as I descended. Dampness clung to the walls. The smell of mildew and old earth settled in my lungs. Nothing had changed, and yet everything felt different. At the bottom of the steps, I swept the light across the room. Shelves, paint cans, Christmas boxes. Then something caught my eye. A section of the wall behind the water heater. The texture didn't match. I stepped closer. There was a seam, a faint outline of a door I'd never noticed before. I dropped the flashlight. My hands trembled as I reached forward and pushed. It groaned open. The space behind it was small and tight, barely the size of a walk-in closet. No light, just dust, cobwebs, and something that smelled like wax and old paper. Inside, boxes, stacks of them, and an old wooden table with melted candle stubs stuck to the surface. I knelt and opened the top box. Books, journals, dozens of them, their leather covers dry and cracked, some tied with ribbon. I grabbed the first one. The name on the inside cover stopped my breath. Clara Whitmore, 1926. But the handwriting, I knew it. It was mine. The curls of the capital letters, the way the lowercase e leaned forward. It was my hand. I opened to a random page. It happened again. I woke up in the same morning I'd died in. William said it was a dream, but I know better. The cut on my hand from the glass, still there, just like before, just like always. My hands shook as I flipped page after page. I thought this life would be different. It started so beautifully, a husband, a home, a daughter. But now I see the cracks. I hear the voices at night. I see the shifts in his eyes. The loop tightens every time I get close. I forget, then I remember, then I die, and it all begins again. The words blurred. I wiped at my face and realized I was crying. I set the journal down and picked up another. This one didn't have a name, but inside were sketches. Symbols I recognized from dreams. A mirror with a crack down the middle. A sun with eyes. A figure standing at a crossroads. At the back, a page was torn halfway out. I turned it gently. My own name stared back at me. Karen. I clutched the book to my chest. The dreams. The déjà vu. The drawings Lily made. The scar. This wasn't new. None of it was new. I wasn't imagining it. I wasn't losing my mind. I'd been here before. I'd been Clara. And maybe I still was. I sat on the floor for what felt like hours, flipping through the lives I'd forgotten. There was always a man, a different name, a different face, but always the same underneath, charming, controlling, withholding pieces of the truth. There was always a daughter, and always the moment where it all unraveled, the loop reset, and I forgot. But this time, something had cracked through. Maybe it was Lily. Maybe it was me. Maybe I'd finally lived this life just far enough to reach the edges. The room seemed to breathe around me. I lit one of the old candles with a match I found in the drawer. The flame flickered, casting long shadows on the stone walls. I whispered the name aloud, just to feel it on my tongue. Clara. And in the flicker of the candlelight, I could almost see her. She looked like me, but sadder and stronger, and I realized I wasn't afraid anymore, because this time I wasn't going to forget. The dreams changed after I found the journal. They stopped feeling like dreams. Now they came layered in scent and sound, candle wax and burning cedar, a low hum like chanting beneath my heartbeat. I no longer woke up wondering if they were real. I knew they were. It always started in the same place. A field of ash-colored grass beneath a sky with no stars. The air thick like molasses, the silence too loud. In the distance, a tree stood alone, twisted, leafless, split down the center like a scar, and beneath it, a woman in black. Her face was hidden, her hands pale. In one palm she held a mirror, in the other a coil of thread. She spoke without moving her mouth. You asked for peace. I couldn't move, only listen. You begged for escape from pain, from memory, from the weight of all your lives. So I gave it to you, a perfect story, over and over, clean and bright. Until you started to remember. Her head tilted. You should not have remembered. I tried to speak. My lips wouldn't open. You broke the thread. Then the ground beneath me cracked, and I fell into another version of myself. I woke up gasping, tangled in sweat-damp sheets, chest tight like I'd been running in my sleep. The candle I'd left burning in the basement was out. The journals beside me. I reached for Clara's again, flipping past pages I'd already read, hunting for the voice I'd just heard. And I found her. Not the woman in the dream, but Clara. The version of me who had once been desperate enough to make a deal. The woman said I could rest. She offered me a life without grief, without pain, without memory. I had to give her something in return, the part of me that remembered, my true name, my blood story. She called it the witch's bargain, a simple thread, repeat until peace is chosen, until the soul accepts the illusion as real. I thought I was strong enough to forget, but I was wrong. Every time I start to feel again, to see again, the world fractures. The peace was never real. It was just silence. The air in the basement seemed to still around me, the thread, the loops, the cracks in the mirror. It wasn't just coincidence. It wasn't madness. It was designed. I had traded my freedom for peace, and now every time I clawed back toward myself, the illusion cracked a little more. The world twisted around me like it wanted to correct the error, erase the memory, but it was too late. I remembered. I stood up too quickly and nearly knocked over the candle holder. The flame hissed. The mirror in the corner of the secret room, the one I hadn't noticed before, reflected not my face, but a flash of something else. A woman in 1,920 seconds lace, another in a blood-red gown, another barefoot in dirt. Me, all watching. Over the next few days, the world shifted more violently. Doors I'd closed were open again. Time bent. I would blink and lose hours. My phone screen showed messages I hadn't written. Lily asked me why I was crying when I wasn't. Daniel said we'd had a conversation that I couldn't remember. Reality was unraveling, or resisting. I flipped through the second journal, searching for more. Another entry. The bargain holds as long as you stay asleep. But the more you remember, the weaker the loop becomes. You can't live in two truths. The soul chooses eventually, to stay or to break the mirror. Another. She comes in dreams because it's the only place she still has power. The witch can't take what you remember willingly, but she can tempt. She can offer you the life you wanted, again. I slammed the book shut. This wasn't about a curse. It was a contract, and I had upheld my side. But now I was breaking it. I walked into the bathroom, flicked on the light, and stared at my reflection. Same eyes, same scar. But I could feel the difference now. That mirror was cracking. And I wasn't going back to sleep, not again. The house was silent except for the faint hum of the fridge. I padded barefoot down the stairs, the wooden steps cool beneath my feet. The kitchen was dim, lit only by the under-cabinet lights and the moon spilling through the window. Daniel sat at the counter, wineglass in hand, swirling it slowly like he was waiting for me. Not surprised, not startled, just waiting. You couldn't sleep either, he said, not looking at me. I stayed by the doorway. You knew I'd come down. He took a sip. I always do. Silence stretched between us like a drawn bow. How long have you known? I asked. He set the glass down with a soft clink. Since before we met. That stopped me. What? He looked at me finally, really looked at me. Karen, this isn't your first loop. It's not even your 10th. You've been waking up for a while now. This is just the first time you got far enough to find the basement. My stomach dropped. You knew? You let me think I was crazy? He shrugged. It's part of the cycle. Doubt, confusion, grief. You remember just enough to start pulling at the seams, and I try to keep the world intact. Why? My voice shook. Why would you do that to me? Because I love you, he said simply. Because I remember you better than anyone else. I've watched you live and die and come back so many times, and every time I try to give you a better life. A softer one. I stared at him. That's not love. That's control. He didn't flinch. My family, he said slowly, descended from the ones who made the original pact. We're guardians of the mirror. Our role is to preserve the illusion for souls like yours, the ones who asked for peace, for safety. You mean the lie, I snapped. He sighed. You begged to forget Karen, or Clara, or Elise, or whatever name you carried in the last life, and we kept you safe. At what cost? He stood now, glass still in hand, his face calm, too calm. You don't understand what's on the other side, the pain, the chaos. You think you want the truth, but you've seen it, lived it, died in it. That's why you made the bargain in the first place. I took a step back, shaking. Don't talk to me like I'm your project. He walked toward me. You still have a choice. We can reset. We can forget all of this. Just say the word. The witch still honors the bargain if you do it willingly. And then what? I asked. I go back to sleep? Live a perfect lie while you sit here and watch me unravel from the shadows? He said nothing. You talk about love, I whispered. But love doesn't trap someone in a pretty prison. Love doesn't erase who they are. Daniel's jaw tightened. You'll regret this. The pain waiting for you outside the loop is real, I cut in. And I'd rather feel something real than live one more perfect Tuesday. The silence that followed was heavy, final. Daniel set his wine down. Then it's already started. What has? The unraveling, he said. Now that you've chosen, the loop will collapse. And so will everything inside it. He stepped back into the shadows of the kitchen, already fading like a dream. Goodbye, Karen. I stood alone in the dim light. But for the first time in forever, I was awake. I woke up already knowing it was a loop. Same sheets, same light, same faint smell of lavender from the pillowcase. But this time, I didn't flinch. This time, I was ready. I sat up slowly, breathing in the morning like it was borrowed time. Because it was. The clock on the wall read 7:12 a.m. Right on cue, the toaster clicked in the kitchen. I walked to the mirror and stared at my reflection. Scar on my forearm, slight bruise beneath my collarbone I didn't remember earning. My eyes, not frightened, not confused, focused. I went downstairs and found Lily at the table already drawing. Hey, sweetheart, I said softly. She looked up, smiled. Mommy, you're not scared today. No, baby, I said. Not today. By 9 a.m., I had written 3 letters. One for myself, labeled open if you wake up again. One for Lily, tucked into the lining of her favorite plush bunny. And one for Thomas. I wasn't sure if I'd see him in this loop, but I knew the shop, and I knew where to leave it. I wrapped the letters in twine and slid them beneath the loose floorboard in the secret room. The one behind the water heater. The room Daniel never talked about but always avoided. I'd also left a set of matches. The cracked mirror. Clara's journal open to the page that described the bargain in her own haunted words. A roadmap for the next me. Just in case. But this time, I didn't plan on there being a next. In town, the sky hung low like it was holding its breath. I found Thomas's shop exactly where it had always been. But this time, the door was locked. No flickering light inside. No scent of dust and time. The loop was breaking. And the world was trying to erase what didn't belong. I slipped the letter addressed to him beneath the door. Then I turned and walked away, feeling the ground tremble just slightly beneath my feet. Like reality had started to wobble. Back at home, I found Daniel sitting in the living room. No book. No laptop. No pretense. He looked at me like he already knew. You're accelerating it, he said. I know. You weren't supposed to get this far. Neither were you, I replied. His expression darkened. If you break it, I vanish with it. You know that. I never asked you to follow me through these lives. You didn't have to. I chose you. I laughed, hollow. You chose to keep me ignorant, to watch me suffer and start over again and again just so you wouldn't be alone. I preserved you, he said. Without me, you would have torn yourself apart a dozen cycles ago. Maybe I needed to, I whispered. Maybe tearing apart is the only way out. He stood slowly. Don't do this. I already have. You'll lose everything, he said. Even Lily. Don't, I snapped. Don't use her. She's part of me, not of this lie. Daniel's jaw clenched. Something flickered behind his eyes. Something darker than I'd ever seen. You think you're strong enough to handle the truth? He asked. To live without the script? I'd rather drown in truth than breathe in this illusion one more day. And that was when he moved. Fast. Too fast. He grabbed my wrist, pulling me close. His grip was no longer gentle. It was desperate. Stop, he hissed. This is the last time. If you go through with it, it doesn't reset. You won't come back. I met his eyes, steady. I know. Then I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out the shard of the broken mirror, the one from the basement. Clara's mirror. My mirror. And I held it up to him. In its cracked surface I saw not Daniel, but the stranger behind every version of him, every face, every lie. I remember now, I said. All of it. The kitchen lights flickered, the walls groaned. Daniel stepped back, eyes wide. No, he whispered. You weren't supposed to remember this much. I took the shard and walked to the center of the room, and I spoke the words Clara wrote in the margin of her final journal. I reclaim what was mine before the thread, before the lie. I choose truth. I choose pain. I choose self. The mirror shard trembled in my hand. Light spilled from the cracks. The loop was screaming. Daniel disappeared before my eyes. No screams, no drama. Just a whisper pulled backward, like dust into a vacuum. The room collapsed in silence. Nothing. I opened my eyes. No alarms, just sky. A blue I'd never seen before. Too real to be part of the loop. And silence. For once not suffocating. Just still. Like a page turning. Like the beginning, there was no floor, no ceiling, only reflections. I stood in the middle of an endless room of mirrors, each panel tall as a cathedral window, reaching into nothing, curving into infinity. Light shimmered across the surfaces, too bright to feel warm, too silent to be real. But I was not alone. They appeared one by one, stepping out of the glass like smoke turning solid. Clara, Sylvia, Maria, Elise. Names I had never known, faces I had only seen in dreams. All of them me, all of them different. Clara wore a 1920s dress stained with ink and grief. Her eyes burned with knowing. Sylvia's arms were covered in ash and paint, a woman who once burned in a fire she didn't start. Maria held a child I'd never met, her body trembling from some betrayal I hadn't lived, yet still remembered. They didn't speak. They didn't have to. They were what I'd been, the lives I'd traded for silence, and they were waiting for my answer. Ahead of me stood the largest mirror of all. It wasn't cracked, not yet, but it hummed, and deep within it I saw the version of me who had made the bargain. Not Karen, not Clara, the first, the origin. She was beautiful, in the way statues are, still and full of sorrow. She held the thread in one hand, silver and fraying, its end disappearing into the glass. Behind her the witch's eyes gleamed, not cruel, just patient, like a librarian who knows how every story ends. This is the last offer, a voice echoed, not from her mouth but from every mirror at once. You may forget again, live a life of peace, no more pain, no more searching, just stillness. I looked down. The mirror shard was still in my hand, its edges glinted. Waiting. Clara stepped closer. She'll give you what you want, she said softly. She always does. Maria nodded. But it won't be you, not really. I stared into the mirror. I saw Lily, I saw Daniel, I saw the house, the garden, the summer light, and behind all of it, emptiness, a life of repetition, a life without meaning, a loop with velvet walls. You don't have to suffer, the voice said again. No, I whispered, I don't, and then I threw the shard. It hit the mirror with a sound like thunder cracking through water. A spider web of fractures spread across the glass, slicing through memory, time, illusion. The mirror screamed, not with pain, but with release. The threads snapped. The floor buckled. Wind surged upward, pulling the past out of the walls. The faces of my former selves began to dissolve, not in loss but in return. They flowed into me, memory becoming bone, becoming breath. and the last thing I saw before the room shattered was me, whole, finally. There was no explosion, no light show, just the soft sound of glass settling, and then silence. Then birdsong, real birds, a real breeze, and sunlight that didn't loop. I stood in a field I didn't recognize. The wind tugged gently at my sleeves. No mirrors, no symbols, just sky and dirt and space to breathe. I was barefoot, alive, and finally, for the first time in lifetimes, free. I woke up to the sound of birds, not the hum of a programmed alarm, not the click of a toaster, not the whisper of repetition in the back of my skull. Just birds, soft, scattered, alive. Sunlight filtered through gauzy curtains, landing in golden stripes across a wooden floor. The window was cracked open. The air smelled like rain and something new, something real. I lay still for a moment, letting my fingers sink into the texture of the quilt. It wasn't the one from our old house. This one was thicker, warmer, hand-stitched maybe. I didn't remember buying it, but I knew I had chosen it, not because it was part of some script, but because I liked it. I sat up slowly, waiting for the tug of déjà vu, for the thrum of the loop to start pulling at me again. But it didn't come. The silence was whole, not hollow. I walked barefoot into the kitchen. No marble countertops, no scent of burnt toast waiting for me. Just wood, sunlight, a potted basil plant by the window, and a coffee mug I didn't recognize but liked instantly. Pale blue, chipped at the lip, solid in my hand. I poured the coffee and took the first sip standing in the doorway. It was hot, actually hot, and I laughed. Because in all the loops, all the carefully curated perfect mornings, the coffee had never once been this hot, or this good. On the shelf near the fridge sat a small photo frame, Lily. Her smile was the same, hair a little longer. She was standing in front of a tree I didn't recognize, holding a balloon. A red one. I touched the glass gently, my chest aching, but not in grief, in memory. I didn't know where she was now, or who she was with. Maybe this life didn't include her, or maybe she hadn't come through with me. But she had existed, and she always would, somewhere, even if only in the part of my soul that never forgot her. "Thank you," I whispered. I didn't need an answer. The breeze through the window felt like one, just the creak of the steps beneath me, the warmth of the sun on my skin, the kind of quiet that doesn't ask to be filled. For the first time in more lives than I could name, I wasn't waiting for something to repeat. I wasn't performing. I wasn't forgetting. I was just here, alive, and it was enough.